Hello and welcome to the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his friends. We are not in the perfect geographical locations today, so you might spot some audio issues, glitches, people dropping their phones, people sounding like they're in tin cans, or general swearing. I, for example, sitting in the lobby of the Crown Plaza Hotel in Liverpool, a place I didn't expect to be. So we're going to kick off today with what we've done in our cars, maybe motorcycles, this week. And I'm going to start with Neil Clifford, because I think he might be the calmest of the four of us. In fact, no, manager's looking calm. Myself and Chris Cooper probably aren't. So let's go for Neil first.
I did one thing that probably is one of the most special things I've ever done in a car. I wasn't driving. I'm immensely privileged and thankful for Mr. Harris for introducing me to one of the most special people that I've ever met, probably the most special person, John McGuinness. I was on the Isle of Man, and John said to me and a couple of other amazing chums that I was with, Joe Macari, Dario Franchitti, Marina Franchitti, would you like a lap of the track? I'll talk you round it. So off we went in his Kia, the 37.75 mile circuit, and every single corner and every single piece of, I don't know, every white line, every yellow line, every change of surface, every bush, every tree, every pillar box, every toilet, every drain, John knows by heart. And it was the most incredible, I don't know, what was it, 40 minutes? Probably the most incredible 40 minutes of my life in a car. And I wasn't even driving. And I hate being a fucking passenger. So I'm genuinely immensely thankful for Chris to opening the doors for me on this phenomenon that is the Isle of Man. I know Chris is on his way there now, and even more grateful to meet John and call him now a friend, I suppose, and his family. It's just beyond belief how incredible that place is. So I can't top that. I've fucked around in some of my cars, but to be honest, that's probably the most impressive thing I've done all year.
Did you get airborne?
No, it was calm. It was beautifully calm. It wasn't about driving fast, although to me he was driving fast because I'm a wuss and panic at anything over the speed limit. But it was more about the precision. It was more about the memory. It was more about the ability to know that thing like the back of your hand. And he's talking about four corners ahead, right? He's already done the corner he's in and the one after. We were going at 70 miles an hour or whatever it was. There are no speed limits in parts of the track, as people know. But this is obviously a thing that he's doing at an average of 135 miles per hour. At some points, 195 miles per hour, and it's beyond belief. And everything must be, to have that ability to manage and enjoy that level of risk and adrenaline. Everything else in his life must be, frankly, bloody boring. I mean, how you cope with those contrasts is amazing, and how his family cope with it. To be honest, it's just an incredible thing, and he's one of our British talents that should be celebrated a lot more, as with all the other drivers that I met, Hillier, David Todd, Dean, it should be fuck F1. Everyone should be watching that. It's the most phenomenal thing. F1 is just like boring as hell. We should all be paying 30 quid to Sky to watch that.
Yeah.
It's beyond belief. So thank you to Chris, and thank you to John, and thank you to John's family for all of the Watsits and the ice creams and the Vimtos and every other beautiful thing that I ate at the weekend. And that's what I did.
Well, I think the other Chris and Manish will be out there as well next year, whether they like it or not. I, I'll fill you in on McGuinness yesterday. So, 52, approaching 53 years old. He's a veteran of the pack. Yesterday, after lap one, actually no, around the pit stop, so lap two of the Superbike race, he was 14th. Is that right? He was 14th. And I spoke to him this morning, and he said, "Yeah, I saw on the pit board when I pitted. I thought 14th. I better get on with it because he led off the start. Then it's a time trial. They go at intervals, so it's elapsed time, and he finished seventh,
Wow.
which is phenomenal. He set the sixth fastest lap of the race. Bearing in mind, there's a load of aliens out ahead of him, and afterwards, they found a nail in his tyre from the first stint. He, they're all aliens. He's the most alien of all. And I just love the fact the elder statesman's out there racing. How good would it be? It was a bit like, it's not unlike Senna being out now and again racing a car. He's a bit younger, but more like if Michael was still racing, it'd be a similar comparison.
It would be, yeah.
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 I think I got a lovely note from and I won't say who it is, but you might be able to guess, a racing driver who's competed at the very highest level after his experience at the TT this year, and he said, "Isn't it strange?" And I think he meant disappointing that Formula One drivers earn millions, and so many of the riders here, not only are they not making money out of what the incredible entertainment they provide us, they're losing money. There's only a few that are making money. Many of them turn
Yeah.
up for the love of it. The sidecar community is phenomenal when you look into them. I mean, they engineer their own vehicles, and they turn up there for the love of it. You could argue it's the last great bastion of the Garagista, where they just turn up and they do it for the yeah,
Yes.
and I think it's phenomenal, and I hope that everyone that listens to this doesn't feel we crap on about it too much. You must go and experience it. If you're a motorcyclist, it helps, but you're welcome if you're not. Don't go there in a fancy supercharged car and try and lap with them. Some people do. I'd advise not to do that, but I would definitely go as a foot passenger just to see it. Go to the
Yeah,
fan,
you can walk everywhere.
and it's
Get off the ferry at Douglas, walk to your hotel, walk to the
we're
grandstand.
we're on our way there now. We didn't quite make it, but I'll explain my week later on. Chris Cooper, what have you been up to?
It's interesting that, isn't it? The juxtaposition of the life of absolutely alien talents at the front of that, and the different perspectives and publicity and profile and understanding there is for someone like Formula One. I was thinking when you were both talking about, is it the injustice or sort of the imbalance, whatever the word is you want to choose, about that. And one of my sports, a bit early when I was growing up, was yacht racing, offshore yacht racing. And I did a couple of fastnet races, which is one of the Grand Prix endurance races, 600 miles. There's 4 or 5 global races, the 600 milers. And the front of them are absolutely elite sailors and Olympians and gold medalists and so forth. But you pull that thread and you end up with the Vendée Globe. It's this peculiarly French thing, which is this single-handed, non-stop, round-the-world yacht race. And there at the front of those, there are some amazingly well-sponsored professional sailors. And then there are people, frankly, just like us, just like some of the people, Neil, that you met and you were talking about as well, Chris. And they get, with the possible exception of outside France, zero coverage, zero understanding. It just looks like you're sitting down for, it's not around the world in 80 days anymore in those things. It's well under 80 days. They don't stop. They've got motors. In fact, they almost don't go outside now because the things are so violent and full on. Pip Hare, who is a British female sailor, lost her mast quite early on in the race this year. And it wasn't, oh, never mind, I'll go into the pits. It should take me a week to find anyone. And I think the TT is the closest we can get to that. It's the closest we can get to an otherworldly experience. And I would love to go. I want to go this year. I'd love to go next year. But I think for a week in cars to go around with John, it must have been amazing. I'm really, really delighted for you and jealous in equal measure next year.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So my week in cars is slightly more sedate. And has a little disappointment in it, actually.
Oh, no.
It's sort of a little disappointment. So this morning, I drove into London. I'm here now in a sort of a meeting room in some nondescript part of the city. And I thought, I've got to go really, really early. There's no call for that. I said to you, I used to stay in that hotel 20 years ago. I would never have got away with that.
No.
Anyway,
bathrobes in the lobby. For those that can't see, bathrobes in the lobby. I mean, dearie me. Carry on,
so I
Chris.
drove in
Sorry.
really early this morning, and I thought, usually when I drive, because I come from roughly the same area that Neil does, and when I go in like 5:45 or something in the morning, I usually go down the M1, come off at Junction 1, down the A1, Holloway Road, past the Emirates, salute it as I go past. That will have turned off 80% of our listenership. And then down to Islington, round Highbury Corner, down to that way. It was a bit busy on the A1. So I'll go via Highgate and then down via Kentish Town and then come out via Salvino's. And I thought, I can pop in and see Neil and all the misfits and Salvino's. Bastard wasn't bloody there.
I wasn't. No, where was I? I was doing a worky thing in our store in Oxford Street very early this morning.
Oh, right. So I thought I won't. It was lots of vans there. And I thought, well, if Neil's not there, they'll think, who's that weirdo coming in without his mate? So, but the reason I share the story, apart from the slight disappointment that Neil wasn't there, I didn't get to enjoy the company of the lovely people at Salvino and their lovely coffees first thing in the morning. It was quite quiet in London. London for driving in is really bad these days. Too many traffic, too many roadworks, trying to balance the needs of lots of different people wanting to use the city. But this morning, at that time, it was actually really enjoyable. It was really enjoyable seeing quiet streets. When you get past sort of Islington, the city quietens down. And I thought, you know what, particularly in the summer when it's light, it wasn't particularly sunny morning, but it's properly light at 6 something in the morning. It's like being in a car advert.
I do it every morning.
It was like being in a car advert. It was really, I don't come in, quite often I come in by train now, because I've got to have a dinner in the evening. I don't want to sort of,
Can I ask one question about the being in a car advert? And I think we're all guilty of this. How many times did you try and check yourself out in the reflection of a window?
Oh,
well, who doesn't do that? Who doesn't do that? You think, and then you think, actually, one of my wheels needs a clean. Or I'm not going slowly enough, because there's a bit about when the car's going really slowly and the rotation of the spokes in the reflection of that, because so many buildings in the city now are completely glass fronted. That is cool.
If that's what you take from looking in the mirror, seeing a reflective surface, what I always think is, wow, he can barely see over the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What car were you in? What car were you in?
I was in the sausage, actually, unusually, because I had to bring the sausage, which I wouldn't have done normally, because I had a very, very large. Thankfully, I haven't got it here because I could show you all the bewildering stuff I had to take to a meeting this morning and pass on to my colleagues. I had a big, like, A1 folio case full of big and impressive pictures of stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I got the car rather than the train.
Were they mounted on foam?
They were mounted on foam, and I had to teach one of my colleagues yesterday. I had a very satisfying afternoon yesterday showing one of my colleagues who hadn't done it before. Here's the supply in our storeroom of all the foam boards. Look, we've got little A4 boards to A1 boards, and sometimes we mount them as A0. We stick two A1s together. You can't move them anywhere. They're too fucking big. So I had a nice morning in my car, missing Neil, but none of that matters because I listened to you talking about your car trip with Mr. McGinnis, which is wonderful.
Manish, what have you done this week around cars?
Well, before we get on to that, I was just imagining Mr. Cooper as one of those 1972 Open University boffins. You can sort of see him, can't you, with his sort of centre parting, long hair, brown shirt, brown tie, brown jacket, with these massive slides. And I think probably, wouldn't you have been one of those mathematical logicians that show you the, you know those maps that have those diagrams? There's if then loops and triangles and things like just lovely logic. You'd sit there and it would be great.
If I was a mathematician, yes.
That's right, you don't do math.
I don't. I like numbers, but I don't do maths.
Babe magnet, if you had what you just described there, babe magnet.
72 babe magnet, yeah.
Open University, BBC Two, you look like an extra from the Good Life. I love it. Right, Manish, carry on.
So my week in cars is actually, I'm going to prospect. I'm off to the concourse this week. I'm going on Thursday. I'm going with a very good friend, Mr. Ronald Stern, who knows a thing or two about Ferraris and who's been part of the concourse for a while. But I'll tell you what I'm very excited about, apart from just having a day dawdling between cars and gawping at some beauties, no doubt. I didn't know that the chairman of the selection committee is Richard Charlesworth. And for people who don't know Richard Charlesworth,
the Bentley bloke, ex-Bentley bloke.
Absolutely.
Oh, nice.
Just he was Mr. Bentley. When I wrote a script for the Bentley Boys that didn't get made, which I hope one day will get made in some way.
What's a better one, Manish?
I got fired, actually. I got fired after 3 drafts. They felt that I'd peaked.
I was only kidding, sorry.
But I met Richard, and I was just thinking about this. He invited me up to Crewe, and I just remember, that's my tangential week in cars, but I remember, I don't think I've enjoyed myself. And I've been around Maranello, I've been around 1 or 2 places, but I don't think I've enjoyed myself as much around anywhere as that day at Crewe, at Bentley. I'd never seen
wonderful.
Such beautiful craftsmanship. I'd never seen cars that I'd read about and that I'd actually written about in the flesh. You know, those 1926, 27, 28, 29 and 30 Bentleys. They're just legendary. You know, Bond drove one, and there was one that was in Battleship Grey. I don't think it was a blower, but I think I got into a 29 4.5 litre Bentley. And I just remember thinking, my God, James Bond, he had the blower version of this, and he drove around London in the 50s in this. And he would have been, can you imagine him hacking through Regent's Park to M's office at 90 miles an hour, just flipping this car around, performing what Ian Fleming described as racing changes.
Yes, isn't that the novelist's greatest conceit? We all talk about the racing gear shift.
What is it? What is the racing change? I don't know.
Alistair MacLean used to write about that as well, didn't he? Yeah. Way to Dusty Death. Do you remember Way to Dusty Death? It was an Alistair MacLean. You know Alistair MacLean, the thriller writer?
Of course,
He was Jackie Stewart's neighbour in Switzerland in the 60s, 70s. And one of the books he wrote was Way to Dusty Death, was about an F1 driver and his teammate who stumbled across some scheming drug trafficking scheme. And he had the damsel in distress in his car. When I was like 11, these were the most amazing books. And he kept on talking about racing change into third, thinking, that's amazing. When I grow up, I'm going to do that. What is it?
Yeah.
But what is it?
It just means whamming the gear lever through unnecessarily fast. And if you have synchromesh, stripping the gear. And if you don't, endangering the gearbox.
I love it. Well, look, so that is going to be it. And I'm going to take Lola there. I'm going to take Lola there, and I'm going to leave the doors open so people can admire the wonderful workmanship.
Don't leave any interior lights on. If you leave it for too long, you'll flatten the battery. So don't do it. Don't leave the bloody boot open. And if it does get flat, don't
battery cut off. Battery cut off.
I'll turn the battery switch off. Don't you worry. And
you did drive her up to Oxfordshire recently. How did that go?
Oh, I mean, so I think I did mention we went to the Charles Napier. I went there for lunch. It was just unbelievable. Nothing went wrong. Everything went right. The other thing I did, by the way, just very quickly in the car was you get this luggage that Ferrari have that you buy for about £10 trillion, a Shedoni luggage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think it's incredibly expensive, and I don't think it's particularly aesthetic. It's very boxy and a bit sort of 80s for my liking. I worked out that you could get a Toomey travel case and 2 Carl Friedrich weekend cases. I measured them to the micrometer, and I actually tried them out. It's perfect. A fifth of the cost and a beautifully full boot. So there you go. That was my weekend cars.
I think it was Richard Charlesworth, wasn't it, that delivered that fantastic line about delivering a car to the Queen. Because he used to deliver the cars to the Queen, didn't he? And I might be misquoting here, and I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong. But apparently I think he did deliver a car, and Phil came running out. Oh, great, new car day, wonderful. And
that's quite good.
And he basically had to go, I'm afraid the client is Her Majesty, and she will drive the car first. So I think he was in control of who the client was, and it was delivered to the client. So Philip would be like, oh, yeah. and would bugger off again. And wait till Brenda had a little steer, and then he'd come back in and have a go. I love that.
Oh.
The client is important. Who is the end user? So I'm sitting here. So there's a conference here that's just spilled out, and they cannot work out what the hell is going on. So I'm sorry about the background noise. We shouldn't really be here. We tried to go and get the ferry on our motorcycles. So we rode our motorcycles from the West Country to Liverpool yesterday evening. We then, James Walker and Neil Carey very cleverly got a couple of rooms in the Crown Plaza so we could just rest for a few hours before we went to get onto the ferry. That didn't happen. So when we went to go to the ferry, there were no other motorcyclists. And this looked a bit weird and a bit lonely.
Yeah.
So we rode up to where the quay was, and there was no boat either, which was a clue, I think, as to why we weren't going to go to Isle of Man. Turns out we were sent an email on Sunday saying we're looking at bad weather in the small hours Tuesday morning. We're going to change the time of the crossing. We're going to bring it earlier. I never saw that because the email address on my crossings was to johnmcguinness@johnmcguinness.com. I'm fairly sure McPint, because he's a bit busy being a legend around the Isle of Man, couldn't be asked with the email at the moment, and I never got the message. So love you, John. Not your fault. Totally my fault. Anyhow, we've had a bit of shilly-shallying. We've had a day in Liverpool, which was sunny and lovely. We stood outside the Kurt Geiger shop, took selfies, bought ourselves coffee, and it's been really quite a pleasant day. But we would rather have been on the island. But we're leaving in about 3 hours' time, and we will get there, and we will be there for about 11:30. Get some kip, and be up for some fun in the morning.
You must have driven something nice this week, Chris.
Oh,
Come on.
we've done some quite good stuff this week.
Yes.
I lent a car to a friend. Did I talk about that last week? I lent my Alpina to a friend. So my mate Gaz, who is a very old school friend, he tore his Achilles. It actually ripped his Achilles, and it caused a load of problems. And then he had to have an operation, and that went septic. And then he's been off games for about 4.5 months now. Gaz, we love you. And he had a manual vehicle. They needed an automatic, so I lent him the Alpina, and he's had it for 4.5 months, and he just didn't want to give it back. He just loves it. So another one of these people who had no idea. He doesn't like cars. He had no idea what an Alpina was. It's that BMW, isn't it? What's that all about? And now, this is the great thing about great cars. They're understood by people that don't understand. They don't know why they're great. They just know they're great.
Yeah.
And he just goes, why is it so good? I said, well, because the people that work out how it rides and how it breathes with the road, they're geniuses. Yeah, it's good at that, isn't it? And then there's the engine, isn't there? He goes, yeah, it's just so fast. But you don't know about it. And it still does 45 to the gallon. How does it do that? It's an Alpina. I do love it. It's a bit like, if you put, I don't know, a really good camera in front of me. I know nothing about cameras, but if I use it and it's better, obviously, than any other camera I've used, I know I'm in the presence of greatness. And sometimes it's quite good to have amateurs confirm what you as an expert know, because it means that your expertise hasn't been misguided. You haven't lost sight of stuff. You've not just been up your own arse. It's when you think your piece of machinery or object that you have an expert opinion about doesn't trigger any sense of greatness from someone you need to worry. If you hand the car over and go, this is the greatest car ever, and someone goes, I don't really get this, I think this is shit, then you really should worry. But the Alpina is the opposite. So I collected the Alpina, and also my M5 Touring is in a spray booth somewhere near Banbury, and is easily the biggest project I've ever undertaken in a car. I have to Sarah from Everything M, who's been wonderful and helps me, and it's he's helping me a lot with this. It will be a different colour. Well, it is a different colour. I'm not going to reveal what, but at the moment it's black. It was black primer in the photographs, and I have to say, at the moment, I couldn't be more in the phase of renewing, enjoying, and just old stuff.
Renew, reuse, recycle.
I know, but I love it, and
I know it's brilliant. I'm not mocking it. I think it's brilliant, and I just think that M5, repainting the M5. I mean, you'd literally run out of things to do with cars, hadn't you? That was the most important thing you had to do.
I know, but and also I've done so much in the last week. I have my medical because I'm doing some racing in 2 weeks' time. I went and had my medical down in Surrey, sort of Surrey Sussex border, and on the way there, I bought eBay. I eBayed just a motley collection of car magazines from the 80s, just months I hadn't seen for ages.
Yeah.
I left behind. I bought 70 magazines for £70, and they are. I mean, I've just been lost in them all week.
Yeah.
I have I've been
That's
lost.
the best 70 quid you can spend. That is.
Honestly, I've been lost in the adverts. I mean, it's too much for me. It is. That's my era of admiration and love. And I have to say, if you just left me on a desert island, I could just deal with old issues of Car Magazine from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
It would suffice. I wouldn't need to drive a car. I don't think. I just
I
love it.
think I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Desert Island Disc, isn't it? What book? Every single car magazine.
It's now. We've literally got about 500 people just turned up in the lobby, for which I apologise.
You had a copy of Car Magazine in that pile that was the end of year Car Magazine Car of the Year thing with the cars on the deck of HMS Ark Royal.
That was called the top 10.
The top 10.
Yeah.
Sorry, the top
They
10
chose-
they did. I think it was would have been 1980.
6.
Actually, it wouldn't have been. It would have been one of the Invincible, Illustrious, or whatever the other one was, with the Harrier jump jet thing. And
do you remember
I think
remember
the
photo
Jag
shoot?
won it. The XJ12.
yeah,
The photo shoot showing how they got the cars onto the
brilliant.
winching them on. I mean, maybe I'm just too romantic about this stuff, but it's when I was young and impressionable, and I have to say, I wouldn't be doing this for a living if it wasn't for those people. It's captivating. I find it more magnetic than any television show or video. Now, here we go. Neil Clifford's asked the questions that matter. What's your favourite GT3 wheel? By this we mean Porsche GT3 road car wheel. Okay? Road car.
Oh, bugger.
Yes, I know where Cooper's going. So
Yeah.
because he's having a tough day, we're going to let him get away with one here because I don't fancy having a fist come out of my computer and punch me in the face. So, Chris Cooper, what's your favourite racing GT3 997 Cup wheel?
It's a steering wheel.
No,
Oh, fucking hell.
It's a steering wheel. Where does it say it couldn't be a steering wheel?
it doesn't. You're quite right.
It
And also,
doesn't.
Neil Clifford, you answered some different questions last week, if you remember.
I did.
Yeah, actually, my answer to this question is 27. Yeah, 27. I thought about 32, but actually it's 27. If you know, you know.
Is it less steerable from that Cup car?
It's the steering wheel from the Cup car.
Yeah.
Because it went through a bit of an evolution. There was a time when, because we used it quite a lot at the ring, and it got a bit munged up, didn't it, really?
Yeah.
Lots of sweaty racing gloves and the sort of the suede on it, or whatever the artificial suede was, got a bit. So we took a wire brush to it.
The technical phrase, and this was used in a vehicle I was looking at purchasing, an old car. And so I had to describe why I thought the steering wheel was in poor condition. And I said, it has a build-up of DNA.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely had a build-up of multiple DNAs, all mixed together into some sort of primordial goo.
Or dare I suggest, in your case, DNFs.
That's actually quite funny for you.
Yeah.
There would have been. There would have been. Actually, there were a few of those.
DNQs.
It really was my favourite because it welcomed you.
Yeah.
That wheel welcomed you. And it was one of those things you could sort of unclip and it would sit on this, it probably was literally a coat hanger. We'd sort of strapped to the roll cage so you could hang on there rather than some expensive Porsche OEM part number. It probably was a Team Parker X coat hanger.
It was a piece of bent aluminium. It's a scoop.
Yeah, it was but it welcomed you, and that everything. It was a friendly car in lots of ways. I probably didn't repay its warmth and welcoming and confidence by not chucking it at the scenery every 5 minutes, but just the feel of that wheel in your hand, and it told you everything. That wheel told you everything, including on one of the last occasions I drove it. That unbelievably frustrating moment where, because I would do the quali laps, the sort of in the morning on a Saturday, and you go out, try and get out as early as possible in the quali laps to get a clear track, to get the best chance at a gun lap time. And it would have been that one of those autumn races where, for some reason, we thought, oh, the queue for qualifying is a bit shorter than normal. There are a few. Why aren't Manti out? Oh, that's fine. It'll be fine. And the sort of the very fast third of the way around the lap, going down towards Adenauer Bridge, just before Miss Hit Miss, if you know what it is, if you're a ringist. That very fast left and right with big dishing in it, which has got very poor visibility, so people tend to brake. You don't have to brake, because you get there and the corner opens up, there's a lot of camber. You can carry a shed load of speed in there. Should see the shift light at the top of fourth gear, little dab before you do Miss Hit Miss. That's when you know you got it nailed. And that day, that faithful steering wheel that just welcomed you and told you everything, as soon as I came down to start to turn to the left, fuck, there's no grip. There's no fucking grip. You instantly know there's nothing there, and you're straight to the scene of the accident. There's an onboard light.
You were going too fast. You were going too fast.
I was going too fast. And as the thing...
No grip just means you're going too fucking fast, doesn't
As
it?
it cannoned off the barrier on the right, you can see from the in-car, my head basically travels the whole way across from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. The best bit was when I was sat down towards Mississippi, facing back up the track, Adam Christodoulou had a bigger off there in front of me, but behind me, and was just skewing, thinking, I had to swerve several times before I hit Chris Cooper, missed me. Think, well, his quality lap's gone. He then stacked it going up the hill to South Strecken. So I'm sorry, DNA'd and DNF'd steering wheel of that Cup car, which is somewhere else now. I let you down. But that's still my favourite steering wheel from a sort of
in some ways, I wish I hadn't said car round tyre wheel, but I love the fact that you talked about the steering wheel. Manish, do you give a monkeys about what the best GT3 wheel is, or have you done your usual thing, been rigorous, looked at Google, looked at all of them and thought, this is my favourite one?
Well, a bit of both. I do look at car wheels, and I think they're a little bit like they are the tip of the iceberg. I think you get they show such thought from the outside about cars. I mean, we've talked about looking in through a car window at maybe a hi-fi or seeing, what extra someone's chosen or what their leather is, but actually choosing your wheels and a really aesthetic wheels. There's a lot about, I think, the driver. I mean, I have a few little rules here. They have to be silver.
Yeah.
I just don't do black. I don't particularly like gold. I have to say, even on sort of Muras or vintage Ferraris, it just doesn't do it for me. I think they have to have 5 spokes. 7 doesn't do it. 6 doesn't do it. There's just something about 5 spokes.
I'm with you, Manish, on this.
Because the other thing I don't like is dead straight lines. I just don't like them, never like them. So they have to have a little bit of an arc. Or, and so actually it's the 20-inch Hyper Silver thing. And a little photo of it here. I think that's it for me.
Yeah, that's a 991 GT3 RS.
Yeah,
it's exactly that, 991 GT3 RS. And I have a little photo here that I do of the thing in situ, and it's so aesthetic. This wheel, it's such an aesthetic thing. Look at this thing.
It doesn't have 5 spokes though.
Well, it's
5 double spokes.
5 petals.
Yeah.
5 petals. You can see that. It's perfect.
Yeah,
it is.
Absolutely perfect. And there's something about 7 is okay and 6 is okay, but 5, it's a spanking number. So there you go. There it is.
Hard to disagree with that. I love that wheel. Neil Clifford.
That is my wheel. You stole it, Manish. The first GT3 that I bought new was an ultraviolet 991 GT3 RS. After watching probably about 100 times the Chris Harris launch video of that car, where you were at that German little track and you called it Mr. Purple, or you drove 2 cars. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember? And I thought, I'm ordering that fucking colour. That's the best colour. And actually, it was the best colour of that series. And I went down to, where did I get the car? Porsche Exeter. Because actually, I rocked up there about 6 months before and said, this was before there was things called speculating or flipping or whatever. I walked in, they're like, I'd like to order the 991 GT3 RS. Oh, there isn't going to be one. I'm like, there is. I promise you there is. No, well, we don't know. We can't confirm that, sir. And I'm like, well, just take a £5,000 deposit off me then, and if there is one, then you can get me one, and if not, you can give me back the money.
Yeah.
And because it was Exeter, they were like, "You're a bit of an idiot, but yes, we'll take £5,000 off you." And then I remember when it was launched and the video came out, the Chris Harris thing or whatever there's Chris Harris on cars, first iteration. And I thought, I'm going to ring up that man. And they actually were a bit pissed off because they're like, yes, but we have to look after our clients, our very important customers that have ordered 17 911s, Tiptronics. And I'm like, no, I've got the, I- I've actually got the receipt. And you wrote on there deposit, customer number one for 991 GT3 RS. So they had to get the car for me. And I went down to Exeter and there it was, and it had the cover on it, that black pulling off thing. And I remember that wheel, and it's that silver wheel, it's satin silver.
Yeah.
And then the contrast with that ultraviolet. I wish I hadn't sold that bloody car because I still think that's a fantastic colour, and I love that wheel. That wheel is,
Good
you
wheel.
know, yes, and actually they're all versions of really, aren't they? Because okay, you go back to the very first Mark 1996. There's a bit of a funny wheel with the sort of the two-piece thing, but as soon as it went to Gen 2, it sort of became that
Yeah.
wheel. It's
It's
just
functional.
iteration.
Yeah.
Is a version of the Mark II 996 wheel. Really, they're always quite similar. So that is my wheel. Yeah,
They look to me like 5 champagne flutes without the stems. That's why they're so beautiful. Just this, aren't they? Just 5 of those. 5
They
petals.
interesting what people say about these things because I think that 991 wheel is sensational. I've in the past been a little less than kind about the first generation 996 GT3. Those that own them, I'm sure you love them as cars, but it's quite a flawed vehicle for me. And they fixed it with the Gen 2. And of course, one of the things about the Gen 1996 GT3 is that wheel's not a GT3 wheel. That was the tech equipment wheel. They had no money, so the GT department just had to go to the parts bin and find what they could. And frankly, the funkiest wheel they could find was the tech equipment split rim, which you could buy that for any Carrera. You can't buy any GT3 wheel for a Carrera. Yeah, so the first gen 996 GT3 wheel was a tech equipment wheel. It wasn't a real wheel, a GT3 wheel. And after that, it's telling. If you went to a Porsche dealership and said, I want a GT3 wheel on a Carrera, either they wouldn't fit, I think quite deliberately from certain people at Porsche GT department, or they wouldn't do it for you. You were not allowed to do that. And I think that's quite important that Porsche always separates these performance models from the ordinary Carreras. I agree, a 991 wheel is a thing of beauty. I've got about 4 sets of them, I think, over time because, I've written cars off and I've bought other sets to put track tyres on. I think the optional Manti Mag BBS wheel is probably my favourite one, but it wasn't a standard wheel and it's very expensive, so it doesn't count here. So I'm gonna slightly, there's one wheel, and I've always looked at them when they're new, and a bit like Manish has said, and Neil as well. The there's something about the evolution of the design language of a Porsche, particularly through wheels, where I think they've all sat there and worked out where's the cheeky nod going to be to the past, how do we make it better for the future, and I really love it with the wheel design of Porsches, and I think with all the ones I've looked at when they're new, the 997 GT3 3.6, the rear wheel always looked so right to me. The front
Yeah.
further out, but the rear was just bang on in silver. I remember the launch in Italy, so I'm going 997 GT3 3.6 for that wheel. I think it's
yeah,
absolutely bang on, and I know it's a quirky one. Also, that car is so underrated that no one really wants those. They all want 3.8 RSs and what have you. Stuff that. Go and find a 3.6 and drive it. Stunning motor car.
It's a nice
yeah,
car. Amazing car.
Right, here we go.
yeah.
So, next one. Where are we? We are. No, that's not it. Here we go. Get rid of that. The art of driving. What elements do we love? I mean, how long have you got? So we started with Chris Cooper last time. So Manish, the art of driving. I'm not being arch here. That you have to describe it through the medium of about 150 miles a year. Well, you're doing more now, anyway.
Well, I'm doing it. So I think it's a really beautiful question because I think actually the art of driving is something that you can enjoy as a learner or as a 7 times world champion. I think driving, the most important thing about driving is it's experiential. You got to do it. And I'm doing it a bit more. And I have to say, I think you can really enjoy yourself at 30 miles an hour. And I think you can enjoy yourself at 100 miles an hour. And I think you can enjoy yourself on a go-kart track. And I think, oddly, you probably can enjoy yourself at 20 miles an hour on the Finchley Road. Because for me, I can tell you what I get out of it. The thing that I really love, I love the rhythm of driving. Rhythm is probably the biggest, zappiest thing for me, especially if I do. I mean, it's been, I don't know, 5 years since I last went out on a go-kart, or longer since I've been out on even the small track at Silverstone. But there's something about feeling and finding your way in. For my 30th, sort of half a lifetime ago now, almost, I share that very closely with a friend. I mean, he's 2 weeks older than me. So his wife organised, those beautiful track days at Silverstone. And we went out, did a bit of go-karting. The next thing was the Peugeot 306 with the six-speed engine, six-speed gearbox.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I was with an instructor and they were teaching us, she said, we teach you classical driving here. So they have the cones, a braking point, a turn-in point, and then a point where you, in theory, have hit the apex and you accelerate. And I just remember doing that at the beginning and thinking, God, poof, I've got to break in here, do this. But it becomes like dancing. And they often said that about great drivers, that it is all about the rhythm. You suddenly feel it and you just get quicker and quicker and quicker. So rhythm for me is what it's about. And then the second thing is precision. And you can have precision in steering. So you see a little gap and you turn and you just get it right. You just go into this little gap. And that could be when you're racing or when you're just trying to come up to a traffic light, or precision in a gear change. There's just so much potential precision in driving. And I think if we want to talk about the art of driving, for me, it's about those two things. It's about precision and it's about rhythm. That's what it is for Manish, at 20 miles an hour or at 100 miles an hour.
Right. So, Neil.
This was a Chris Cooper question. And I'm looking forward to his answer because it will be much better than mine.
No.
I just love driving, even though I can't really explain the art bit. I love the fact, I just love being in a bloody car. I love the movement. I love the excitement of the journey. It's a bit like my Jackanory story that I'd spoken about. It's a bit like towing in a way. I would love to learn the art of driving more than I've got. I do just love driving, but I've got this short-term memory problem. So I don't have that rhythm thing or the precision thing. So I'd like to develop that. But there's one thing for sure, there's not many things in life that I like doing more than going somewhere on my own in a car. It's easy to say it's my third space. Frankly, it's probably my first space. It's where I have the best ideas. It's where I think. It's where I can relax the most. If I'm even at home, sat on the sofa, having a cup of tea with the dog and the wife, actually, you sort of wish you were in a car. I could live in a car.
Yeah.
I think it is undoubtedly my best place. And I'd like to learn the art of doing the driving bit a little bit more. So maybe Chris Cooper, after his towing course, he can show me the art of driving course.
Me
I
too.
think what's interesting about that there is that I'm sure that there are things you could learn, but I'm not sure it would make it any more enjoyable. It sounds like you've got such a lovely affinity with how you feel about being in a car. It might
Yeah.
be interesting, but it probably won't bring any more joy because it sounds like you can't really extract more joy from the process.
Yes. You're maxed.
it probably wouldn't give me any more joy. Maybe I'd enjoy a track day, or I was thinking when I was going around with John McGuinness around that, and he did do a little. He did maybe a mile or two on the mountain road. He was driving pretty quick. Like I was with you, Chris, last year. Not as quick as you were bloody driving, but for me it was quick. And we were in a sort of nondescript, wonderful little Kia. And I thought, you bloody idiot! You've got all these wanky cars. You've just bought this Porsche Boxster Spider. I'm never going to experience 5/10 of what these cars can do. It's almost frankly embarrassing that you wouldn't have the bottle or the talent or the experience or the knowledge to drive my 991R half as fast as John McGuinness was driving a bloody Kia. So it's a little bit ridiculous owning all these
I'm not
cars.
sure it is, and I think that's why motorcycling is important for me, because without sounding awful, I can extract 10 tenths of the performance out of a 991R or whatever it is. Many people can, but I can't out of a motorcycle. I am what you are in cars. I'm probably even worse on a bike, but I don't feel
Mm.
ashamed to have quite a fast bike. I love it for what it is. It makes me feel good. I want the one with the big engine and the fancy wheels. I don't want the bike that I can take all the performance from it, because that would just be, why would I want a 250? I probably couldn't even ride all the performance out of that. It's
No,
I'm treating myself. It's the thing I wanted,
I
and
think I think that's right. I suppose is what I'm saying, and I'm saying it badly. Maybe there's more pleasure to be had from my Boxster Spider
oh yeah.
if I could drive it at 8/10 than I can drive it at 5/10. Maybe there is more pleasure for me to find. Although I'm risk averse, if I go around a corner, I think there's going to be a tractor coming the other way. So I'm quite slow round a corner.
Yeah.
But you know,
Chris Cooper.
The art of driving is the never-ending pursuit of perfection in conducting the mechanically propelled road carriage.
What, Jesus Christ?
That's what it is. It's never-ending.
It's the asymptote of perfection. I think
Might
that's
well be that. Yeah,
that
well
is-
remembered. And it started somewhere. It started somewhere with me, and I'd always been into cars, and always loved the idea of cars, and read magazines before I was old enough to drive, and I learnt to drive in a field when I was 11 or 12. Wasn't very good at it, but I still liked it. I was quite nervous about it. It's interesting what Neil says about being risk averse. When I got taken karting, I went to Butmore Park when I was in the Scouts. I was 11 years old, 11, 12 years old. And I was scared. I was scared. I was
Sorry, where's
scared of the
this going?
speed.
You were scared of the
Of the
Scoutmaster?
speed. Of
Sorry, of the speed.
No, we
Sorry.
did get taken there. We did get taken there in a cattle truck, which was slightly, in hindsight, inappropriate. Anyway, that's for my OnlyFans site.
what was the name of the place you went again with the Scouts?
Butmore Park, very well known kart track. Butmore Park, yeah.
it's where Lewis sort of got his
BUCK.
chops,
There's
wasn't
a
it?
play. It's where Johnny Herbert. In fact, I think it was. Is it owned by John Surtees in the end? I think he owned it. It's
Oh,
where
BUCK. Okay.
BUCK, Butmore Park, yeah. And I was too scared to put my foot all the way down. I thought, well, the speed is just too much. It's just too much. When I learned to drive, there was a guy, when we were learning to drive, everybody that wasn't our age, they didn't have first names. They were just Mr. or Mrs. or Miss. When we were growing up, certainly.
Or, hold on, uncle or auntie, which I still think's weird.
Yeah, exactly. So my driving instructor, who many, many years later, when I was about 30 or 40, I actually could call him Jim Wilson, Mr. Wilson. So he taught me how to drive. But he knew I was quite into cars. So he said, why don't you learn how to do the advanced driving test, the Institute of Advanced? And he said, because this was the bit that they don't do these days. But kind of the strap line of it was, this is what you're trying to achieve with your driving, is imagine you have a sick child in the back of the car and you've got to get them to hospital as quickly and safely as possible. It's down to you. And you think, that's just such an important mission. I'm going to drive quickly and safely and smoothly. And it all came from that. And it was, if I had to, I was thinking about this morning on the way in here, into London this morning, about there are so many elements of it, but there's one about anticipation. I just don't mean thinking about risks that are ahead. It's about predicting what other people are going to do. Part of the art of driving, which I love, is being able to predict what somebody else is going to do and anticipate, think, well, actually, they're going to move across the lane on the motorway. Before they indicate, I'm going to move already. I'm going to move already, so they've got an empty lane to go into. And when you go past me, you think, I'm just going to see whether they wave at me or just raise a finger, whatever. And most of them don't. But then occasionally, there's one of us. And as you sort of go past, they'll just raise a hand or raise a finger to say thank you. And you know you've shared in that brief moment of otherwise totally anonymous, literally cars passing in the early morning. You've met a fellow nerd, one of us, who got the art of driving, and you just offered and received back a little token of appreciation of the art of driving. That's what I love
I
about it.
think that's true. I get the little waves. I do that a lot.
Yeah.
I think, I totally agree with all of that. Art of driving. Well, what elements do we love? I love all of the elements. I think that's why we're on this podcast. I love operating machinery. It doesn't have to be a car. I want to be on the lawnmower. I want to be in the hire car. I want to be, if there's any kind of contraption that looks like it might have a wheel and move, I want to get on it. I'm inquisitive. I want to know how it moves and what the levers do. And I suppose very quickly I want to try and work out if I can do it a bit better than I did it 5 minutes before. It's a happy place. But the older I become, the more it's about being busy. I like being occupied. It's not about the speed. It used to be about the speed. Now I just like being occupied. And that's why, for example, I had a long chat with someone recently about the London to Brighton vintage car run.
Yeah.
That would have appealed to me before. But the idea of wrestling some contraption with valves and knobs and pedals the wrong way around for a day suddenly seems quite appealing. I do believe it's about being busy, and as you say, within that, trying to do it maybe a little bit better than you did it before. And that's why the motorcycles has been a lovely thing. Is I've trying to learn a whole new skill. You try doing the sort of the equivalent of a heel and toe downshift on a bike. Bloody hell! It's like trying to sharpen an HB pencil and pat yourself on the arse at the same time. It's impossible. How they do it, I don't know. But I'm trying to. Now you've got the auto blip. It's the same as having the automatic downshifter in a car. Now we're on a slightly tight schedule here, so we're going to have to move on quite quickly. I'm actually going to remove the next part of our agenda, but we'll move it on to next week. Unfortunately, because we're going to run out of time, and I want to talk about the Formula One because there's a fair amount to talk about in the Formula One. I'm going to go straight to Neil Clifford for the first time here because
Bloody hell!
I think three of us have invested ourselves rather heavily in our opinion to this, and Neil keeps a lovely, slightly more detached attitude towards Formula One. What did you make of it and the bit that people are talking about?
There was one particular event which you guys will be able to articulate much better than me, and I love the gossip about that event, and hopefully Manish is going to cover that off because I think it's brilliant. They all merge into one for me, but I suppose I should be excited, right? I need to fake excitement here. Wasn't it really good that McLaren won, and even though it wasn't Lando, it was the other guy, and it was really good, and Lewis is really shit suddenly, and that's really disappointing, and we're all upset for him, and probably Ferrari are even more pissed off that they've given him all that money, and Max just went mad.
Yeah, that was it.
And you know we've all done that on, I don't know, Mario Kart with our kids, haven't we? You bastard, I'm going to just smash you off now because you've overtaken me. But to do it in real life, Manish has got some really wonderful angles on that, which I think is fabulous. But he saw the mist, didn't he? And he got, actually, he shouldn't. I don't really know what happened because I was busy, I don't know, looking at Car and Classic on my iPad, pretending to watch it. He shouldn't have been told to give the place back,
No,
shouldn't he? So he
no.
was in the right, and then he was just annoyed, and then he was like, "Okay, well, I'm just going to lose my shit and smash the guy off." But anyway, Barcelona looked nice, didn't it? They're all pretty similar. Once you've been to the TT, it all just bloody merges, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But Manish, you had some lovely angles on this Max thing.
Right, let's go to Manish then.
Hmm.
So we're just going to talk about the Max thing. My favorite angle actually just emerged last night, which was so Toto Wolff was asked about this, and he said, "Oh, was he told to give the place back? Oh, I didn't hear that bit." And then, oh no, there's no way that would have been road rage from Max. Naughty if it was, but I don't believe it. To which all the comments underneath say Max to Mercedes for 2026. That's it. That's the angle. I I read that apparently in sim racing, this is what they do. If you're pissed off with someone because you feel you've been nerfed out, you do kind of go up to them in sim racing and you kind of nerf them. You give them a tap. You do this. I mean, it was very Vettel from, can you remember which Grand Prix it was? I think
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
He just slammed into Lewis for no really
He was
obvious.
pissed off. He was pissed off with him. He was irritated.
Yeah, he went back like that. And
It was into George, wasn't it?
no, this was to George, but
Oh, sorry,
Vettel
yeah.
did this in
Vettel
Azerbaijan
did to Lewis.
to Lewis.
Okay,
And
sorry.
so, listen, I think we want Formula One to be emotional and expressive, and we want people to say what they're feeling and not speak in kind of Ron speak. Should he have done it? Absolutely not. Is this just another facet of the fact that Max is pretty damn authentic? I think it is. And I think, George Russell and, Nico Rosberg both sort of saying, well, disqualify. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Cooper has a different view on it, Mr. Harris to some extent, because you race. I'm not sure that, every kid watching this is going to suddenly become a naughty, bad driver. I think, he is built to win, isn't he? That boy. I'm talking about Max. He's built to win, and we all know that he is the best driver, and he's not the best driver by a small margin. I'm hoping that as the years go on, I'm really hoping that Oscar Piastri just gets better and better, because right now I think there's Max Verstappen and then there's just everybody else, and it depends on your car. Charles Leclerc sometimes sits in that space between the 2 points I've described. And I think it's very hard when you're the best by miles to be in a not very good car and to grab it by the scruff of the neck and to drag a performance out of it week after week after week. I think it's very hard. I saw, beer pong time. I saw Senna do it in 1992. Was probably it was for me that year. These two electric Williamses were driving off, and he just got angrier and angrier. And there were times when that would come out. And I think, these people risk their lives when they do this. This isn't tiddlywinks. It's just not tennis. It's not golf. And I think sometimes, yes, is it excusable that the red mist comes out? Is it excusable? Would I excuse him? I don't know if that's the word, but do I understand it? In a little moment like that, I think I do understand it, actually. I do understand it. I understand him going, if I drop from third to fifth now after working my ass off, making a 3-stop strategy work from nowhere. I just texted on our group chat, I think Charles has got Max. And the fact that Charles did not get Max, and had there not been a safety car, Max would have been on the podium. And I think that was revving through his mind. And when he realized the only set of tires he had left were made of stone and he would have no grip, how did he catch that? How did he catch that tank slapper? How did he even do that?
Yeah.
He should have been spinning around and joining Antonelli. So do I get it? I think I do get it. And my little epitaph here is just, Oscar Piastri, can we just remind ourselves that this is his third season in Formula One? The guy, and for his first season in Formula One, that car was not good for half a season. He's won 5 Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And McLaren, remember, because of these new rules, we're supposed to be going backwards. As Frederick Vasseur, the Black Knight from Monty Python, said, it will all turn around now. It's only a flesh wound. But it hasn't all turned around now. And as Toto Wolff prophesied, I think the people who will benefit most from this will be Ferrari and then possibly us. Well, that was a 1-2 for McLaren that was pretty comfortable by the looks of it. So I think we're in for a tricky old season, but I think Max can just chuck these bits in now and again. It'll keep us reasonably spiced, I think.
Chris Cooper.
He shouldn't have driven into George, but we all know why he did, because he was tested beyond endurance.
Yes.
And he snapped. And he's born to win. He's an amazing racer. We know he's highly charged, and we love all of that. But he shouldn't have done it, and he knows that. He pretty much said it shouldn't have happened. It was a mistake, and he gets that. I have a lot of sympathy for what led him to that moment. The main thing I want to say about that whole thing was the rank hypocrisy of how the media dealt with it, particularly, and I'm looking at you, Sky F1, at this point. I thought they were tacky. There was a point where they said, there's a QR code on the screen. Do you think Max should have been disqualified, yes or no? Get out of here. I mean, that is just they hate the fact that races are boring. So I thought that was unnecessary and unseemly of Sky to do that. I thought it was just really, and for one of the interviews, the lady in Sky who was interviewing the drivers, she said to Oscar, well, what do you think about, he said, well, I was kind of leading the race. I didn't really see it. Oh, yes, but you must have an opinion on it. And she said, actually, I don't. And so after all that, if you think that's bad, anybody who watched IndyCar from Detroit the same weekend in the United States of America, in the Detroit street circuit, which is a bit narrow, granted, Will Power, a great name for a racing driver, who I banged wheels with once, donkeys years ago, he got caught behind Kyle Kirkwood, who's a fast driver, was a qualifying lap, something like that. And rather than thinking, drat, that's my quali lap gone, or my start to my fast lap gone, literally pushed the car in front of him through the next 3 or 4 corners to get him out of the way. It was hilarious. It was like watching Flintstones or some cartoon. How many second penalty did he get? How many penalty points did he get? None at all. So everyone, calm down. Shouldn't have done it, but calm the fuck down.
I think I agree. I particularly, and I don't want to call people out, but I thought that it was Rachel Brooks that conducted the interviews.
Rachel Brooks, yes.
I think she's done a really good job at times. She asked some difficult questions, but this time it felt very tabloid. So the interview with Max was just trying to rile him. And I have a huge problem when you say things like "you're a role model." Max doesn't set out to be a role model. He might be used as one, but that's one thing he has every right to go. I didn't decide.
Children might be watching.
So what? He's made a mistake. He knows it, and for someone in that position to try and get a 4-time world champion to commit Harry Kerry and go, mea culpa, I'm so sorry, I forgive. I'm responsible for all the world's ills, and she kept going at him, and I thought it was bad. And actually, I hate to say it, the reason why it was a poor sort of series of interviews was she then spoke to Lewis, and who was in a very different mindset, and sort of managed to upset him as well by going, "Oh, you look so forlorn. It's so sorry, seeing you this way." And he went, "What do you want me to say? I've had a really shit day at the office. I can't say much more." And then to try and lead Oscar, I just thought it was a bit tabloid myself. I think they can do better than that. All of them have proved they can do better than that. We all know it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
we all know. But actually, for me, there have been times when Max has done much more outrageous things than this. Actually, for me, even though this looked the most gratuitous, he's done things that I think have been naughtier. There's no mitigation here, but the two aspects of it I find interesting. One, it was very low speed. If it happened at high speed, it's a different kettle of fish in an open. And it was just a petulant karting style. Have some of this. And the other one was, I thought he was managed by his team as poorly as I've seen him managed. They've done a really good job of sort of managing what they know is quite a fiery personality. And if you were his line manager at work, it's like they sort of they managed to press all of his buttons in about 3 laps. And when the conflagration happened, it just sort of happened. Until that point, I thought it was an interesting race, and I did love the fact that we had one of those situations where someone had gone for a different strategy and lobbed the cat amongst the pigeons, and that meant that it gave you a reason to stay until the end and go, let's see how this pans
That's
out. And
true.
that last
Yeah.
safety car slightly spoilt it, really. And also, I mean, the race will be remembered for that incident, but I've never seen a better save in a Formula One car.
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't. It was absolutely outrageous. Flat out on a hard tyre, and he hit the lock stops at 180 miles an hour. I don't think. The question is, could another Formula One driver have saved that? I'm not sure. It was outrageous. Did you see, by the way, George Russell's little brilliant snide remark about there might, do you think any other driver did this? He said, well, I don't think anyone would, apart from maybe one driver in Formula E. And Dan Tickton, if you go onto his Instagram, has responded to this on his Instagram. And it's really brilliant. Go and look at Dan Tickson's Instagram, because it's Dan who he was talking about, who has, he'll admit, been a bit of a naughty boy at times. And Dan has replied to it in a really, really amusing way on his Instagram. Well worth a watch.
What do we think happened to Lance's hand?
He got damaged when he hit it against something stupid.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Thank you. Allegedly.
19 starters.
Allegedly, Mr.
19
and Clifford. So, we interrupt this podcast for an important infomercial. K&N have been really kind and helped sponsor this podcast, and therefore I want to tell you a bit more about what they do. Because for me, K&N is all about 70s, 80s, and maybe a few 90s cars and beautiful metal air filters that we know improve performance, because what you breathe in, you can then breathe out through a larger exhaust. But K&N does far more than offer products for just old Fords and Vauxhalls. Would you believe that pretty much all AMG vehicles have a K&N fitment? They also do marine engines if you want more power from your speedboat. They do Mercedes Sprinter fitments. They do everything from Corvette Stingrays to Ford Crown Victorias, because obviously they're an American product. How about a 2025 Alpina B3? If you want more intake noise and a bit more performance, you could fit a K&N air filter. Would you believe that BYD, Build Your Dreams, not sure they're my dreams, will also have a fitment from 2007? I mean, I find that astonishing. But my favourite ones, Ducati Panigale. There is an official K&N air filter for a Ferrari F40. There's also one for John Deere tractors. But the most pertinent one of all, there is a K&N air filter for the Ferrari 456. Lola, get yourself some better lungs. We're going to move on quickly to a two-car garage, because it's 30 minutes past, Mr. C, and you've got to get going, haven't you?
It's fine. Keep going.
Okay, so we've got a two-car garage today. Right. You are a Borders landowner with a passion for fast cars. Borders, for those of you that don't live in the United Kingdom, means between England and Scotland. You've recently found £300,000 hiding under a knackered old sofa and have decided to spank it all on two cars without your wife. Your name is Neil Clifford. One car needs to be able to deal with daily hard off-road abuse, as well as being interesting to drive on road. The other is for pure driving nirvana around the Scottish borders and road trips. It has to be manual and rear-wheel drive. The clinch is that you don't want your wife to realise how much they cost, so they have to be quite low-key. Right, this is very, very good. Who delivered this, man? You know the guy's name?
A new friend called Charlie.
Charlie, there you go. Right, so I'm going to go first to Neil Clifford.
Okay, so I'm almost answering it correctly. We are spending as little as possible on the first bloody thing.
Yeah.
But you've got to, you know, you're up in the borders. You're going to break down a lot. You need something reliable, so it can't be a Range Rover or a Land Rover. So it's got to be Japanese, and you need 4x4. You want something cool. So I'm doing my default, which is that Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution.
Yeah.
Because no one really knows what that is either, but it's just like it won the bloody Dakar like 10 times or something.
It's the Shogun
really cool.
on steroids, yeah.
Yeah. So you get one of those. You won't get it in the flashy red. You get it in silver. The wife doesn't really know what it is. You can tell her it was £5 grand. I mean, it's only 20 grand, but you save all your money, as much money as possible, because you've got to get the coolest thing. You want to spend all the money, but it's got to look like it's not worth very much, which is a bit tricky. And you're in Scotland, and if you're in Scotland, it's got to be a blue car, and it's got to. I mean, in my view, it's got to be a Subaru. So you're going out and finding a 22B because you've got all of the,
Very clever.
all of the Scottish rally driver stuff. We all know their names. You've got the McRae thing. You've got all of that amazingness. I know it's not bloody rear wheel drive before some clever dick tells me it's 4 wheel drive, but you can tell the wife it's rear wheel drive, and it looks like something off of Piston Heads for 20 grand, but actually you've whacked 275 grand on a Subaru, and you spent all your money.
I think there's very, very intelligent way of looking at it, Neil Clifford. I like it. So let's go for Chris Cooper.
So I think if I was a Land Rover in the Scottish Borders, I'd do two things differently. Because I'm an honest Scot, I would tell my wife how much money I'd found. And then I would devote half of it to all the important things that the estate or the farm would need: roofs, replacement tractors, blah, blah, blah. So I had half of it left. And I'd be honest about what I'd done with it. And I think the first car would be a Bowler Wildcat.
Good.
Bowler
That's all
Wildcat?
the money gone. That's all the money gone.
All the
60
money gone.
grand. 60 grand second hand.
What?
Bowler
No.
Wildcat. I found one that was sold a few years ago on an auction site for about 62,000. So Bowler Wildcat, I would be sort of 60 odd grand. I reckon the rest of it because those are wonderful roads. Some of them are quite open and wide. There are some a bit narrow. So you need slightly older car, not brand new. 2010 Aston Martin Vantage V12, manual gearbox. I think you'd have a lot of time in that.
Yeah, that's good.
Mrs. Scottish Borders landowner, wife, person would enjoy what you'd invested the other half in. That's what I do.
So wait a minute. So you're not spending all the money, and you are telling your wife.
Correct.
But apart from that, it's the same two-car garage.
Exactly right, yeah. And my other answer was 52.
Nice. I like it. Manish?
42.
14. Manish?
Okay, so I am going to spend a bit of money on each, and I think, you're a Borders landowner. I know they may not be the most reliable thing, but I think when Arconic play with your Land Rover and put an LS3 engine into it,
Yeah, I like thinking.
So it's 190,000 quid, but for this baby, 430 horsepower. I don't think it's breaking down. I think that's going to be amazing off-road, and I think it's going to be a very interesting drive. Would be interesting to drive. Now, you're left with
I hope you've got a dentist close by.
Sorry?
I hope you've got a dentist to have a new set of teeth put in.
Yeah, they're just born to be off-road. So I've got 110,000 left, but I only need 90 because I found this baby, and I still can't quite believe this. It's a 1970 Fulvia HF.
Yeah.
1600, 90,000 pounds. Front engine, rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. And this thing's only got 3,714 miles on it.
Yeah.
And you get that for 90,000. It had a complete engine rebuild 5 years ago. I think you'd have a lot of fun in that Lancia Fulvia in the Borders on those twisty ribbon roads. So they would be and you've just got a Land Rover and a Lancia, darling. What could they possibly cost?
I think you get around most of the problems there, Manish. That's what this is about, getting around problems, isn't it? So
exactly.
I'm saying I don't like SUVs, but there's a car. I had a weakness last week, and there's another one that is a bit of a worry. It's the first generation BMW X5M.
Great car.
4.6?
They look
4.8.
No,
4.8.
not that. The second generation car that actually had the M5 engine in it. That's the 4.8. The second generation car, sorry, they put the M5 engine in it, and it's got 500 horsepower. They're bloody actually they're quite cool things. One of those on some winter tyres is going to go anywhere really, and it's going to be fast as hell. And you just say it's a crap old 15-year-old BMW, no one's going to care. You get it. They did them in a dark blue with clear glass. They look quite dignified, actually.
Yeah, it's a good car. Great wheels.
So I've always thought the best way round trying to explain an expensive car, that it looks an expensive car. You can't get round this. You walk into the room and the person that you love that's in your life knows it's an expensive car. They've been around expensive cars. But if you turned up with a damaged expensive car...
Which mostly speaking, you would.
That's
yes,
brilliant, Chris Harris logic, that is.
So I think I'd like a GT3 RS 992. And I reckon I know where I could find one that had just been damaged. So I would probably go for that. Go and find a 992 RS that had been shunted and turn up in that. Because then you could go, well, look, it's got a bit airbags hanging out of it and whatever. You will repair that. Or maybe we'll just leave them. And it won't look too flash. Got some scuffs up it. So if a sheep shits on it or you turn into a cow or something, it's all going to be fine. But the best way around it is to get something that's been damaged already. There you go. Pre-damaged. So very quickly, piece of music. I'm going to start there then. Okay. LCD Sound System is a band I've always enjoyed, and I don't believe this is a fair description, but there's a song called North American Scum, which always makes me want to drive a bit too quickly, which is the origins of this particular section of the podcast. Was what music makes you want to drive? North American Scum. It's got a great beat. Manish.
I was very lucky. I went to see Nigel Kennedy and the Four Seasons Orchestra at the Royal Festival Hall on Sunday. And I have picked this piece of music before, but I will pick it again. But find Nigel playing this. It is Vivaldi's Four Seasons, Pick Summer. It's a second movement. Listen to a genius play a genius piece of music when you drive a car very quickly. It's wonderful.
Chris Cooper.
On Sunday, I watched the finale here in the United Kingdom, Leicestershire, of Mobland. Oh, what a finale that was.
Don't say anything.
And the music of this episode, and thinking about Max's day, and sometimes, we kind of all sometimes feel a bit of that, Johnny Cash, The Beast in Me.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Great tune. Neil.
The 90s was all about Oasis for me. And I don't have tickets, but I've still been listening to them a lot. And little by little, Oasis.
Great.
I love them dearly.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to have to cut this short. People are running around, need to do things. We need to get on a ferry. Thank you very much for listening to episode 40. We look forward to introducing you to episode 41. Over and out.